I'm about to walk you through a basic HR onboarding demonstration using the K2 platform. Onboarding new employees has many different steps depending upon the organization. In today's fictional organization, what we're going to do is once we fill out some basic information around the user in a SharePoint library and save it, it's going to kick off a workflow. That workflow is going to set some data fields that we'll use throughout the workflow. It will then set the status within the SharePoint library as in process so we can always glance at the library and see what stage we're in. It's then going to look at the metadata within that form and determine if it's an executive hire, in which case it will go for executive review with the HR department. Once the HR department has reviewed it and everything is copacetic, they'll resubmit it. During that resubmission process, we're going to programmatically look at the first name and last name of the intended user and determine if someone already exists within the organization by that name. If no one exists, we'll go ahead and automatically create an AD user account, taking the burden off of IT. If someone by that name already exists, we're going to have to actually intervene there and send that to IT to take a look at. So we'll update the list item that it's an IT review, and then IT will be incumbent upon them to determine an alternate username. In today's example, we're going to have a fictional user by the name of Stephen Bolt who already exists. So it makes sense that maybe the new user is called Steve Bolt. So they'll go ahead and rectify that situation and they'll send it back through. Now, if there's no conflict, we'll again create the new user. At that point in time, we'll send an email to the originator saying, okay, we have created the new user and we'll keep you apprised of any additional steps through the process. We're then going to go ahead and create some permissions in SharePoint for this user. We're going to send out two additional tasks. One is for the building facility manager to go ahead and find this person a place to work, give them access to a cube in a particular building, and for someone else within the HR organization to go ahead and schedule them, sit down or give them their orientation. At that point, we'll send another email to the originator, giving them apprised of the status, and then we'll basically send a text to the new employee, letting them know what their first day of work is and when their orientation is. And then when they do arrive at work, they will actually have to go back in and they'll already have a task waiting on their task list to go ahead and fill out some additional information for HR. So that's what the process looks like end to end. So let's go ahead and dig in and walk right through it. So here's that library that I talked about where we keep track of new employees and we can see whether they're in process or completed. And we're going to go ahead and create a new employee. In this case, we are going to just give this a title of demonstration. And as I mentioned, the first name of this employee will be Stephen, and there's someone with this name that already exists within the organization, hence causing an exception that has to be handled. And if I could type a little better here, ELLDT, and the position that they are going to be is the CIO, and the department obviously would be IT, and that region we're going to say is the United Kingdom. We're going to use that region a little later to do some things around how much they're allowed to spend and convert it to their currency, particular things around their office expenses. So the submitter, we could do that programmatically, but I'm going to go ahead and type it in manually. So it's going to go ahead and look into Azure Active Directory and resolve my username to actual display name of Mark McGovern. And we're going to say that there's a start date. We're going to use our picker here and say it's the 14th. And their job classification, as I said, the CIO would be an executive, and that's going to send it for some further review for another pair of eyes to look at to make sure everything's copacetic, as I said. And then we're going to enter their phone number so we can send them a text message that I mentioned. So we'll go ahead and save this off, and that will essentially kick off the workflow. So if I was to give this a refresh right here, you'll see that the status is now going to say in process. It takes another second for that to occur. We can come back here if we need be. We'll come back here. There you go. Okay, so it's in process. So as I said, the first step, because it is an executive, we're going to have to do some HR review. So in this example, our fictional HR reviewer is Mary Smith. And on her homepage where she works all the time, we've embedded the K2 work list, which shows her all of her activities that she must intervene on. So perhaps she has to approve an employee's expense or do a performance review. But in this particular case, she just has to do her HR review task. So when we hover our mouse over the action item here, we can do a lot of things. We can put this task to sleep. Perhaps she has 100 items here and she wants to hide a couple of them just to have the ones that are most important bubble to the top, and we can set that to sleep for a while. She can actually, assuming she has the right permissions, redirect this to a subordinate who could act on it for her. And similarly, she could go ahead and share this to members of our team. Something is configurable, it depends on the business rules of an organization. Some people are all about speed. We could allow her to, maybe people communicate very frequently via phone call. She could actually approve this right here without even looking at the form. Or we could hide that and force her to open up the form and look at all of the ways, look at it in detail before she actions it. So before I do any of that, I'm actually going to go ahead and take a look at view flow, which is one of our reporting mechanisms, and probably, quite frankly, is probably our most popular. And that's because it gives you a real-time look. You've already kind of seen this process in them, but now you're actually looking at it in real time. So green indicates the steps that have occurred, and green indicates the path that we're following, and red indicates the path that we're not following. Blue always indicates the step that we're presently on, and you can drill into any of these to see what's going on there. So for instance, here we can see the participant and whether they've done any action on that. So what I'm going to do now is actually open up the form that Mary can take a look at before she submits this. So as you can see, we've clearly stated at the top here, it gives her instructions. A new employee workflow has been started for an executive. Please review the information below for accuracy and click submit when correct. So we can come down here and we can look and everything looks good. And she can say all of A-OK. And before I submit this, I'll show you one other way. At K2, we recognize that everyone in an organization has their own methods of working. Some people live and die in SharePoint. Others work on their mobile devices quite frequently, while others actually work in email and Outlook. So here, we've actually sent Mary an email that says, essentially, to action your task via email, and I apologize, that email should say Mary, to action your task via email, respond with one of the following actions. And the action there is approved. If she had multiple choices, she could, they would be listed out there, but she could literally go ahead if she's in a meeting, such as the one you're attending right now, she could hit reply and go ahead and type in, approved, and because of our tight integration with Microsoft Exchange, that process would continue to flow, even though she hasn't gone into SharePoint or opened the form itself. And the question we get here a lot of times is, what if they type misspell this? And our Exchange integration is smart enough to know that that's not correct, and it's going to send an email essentially asking for confirmation of what did you mean. So let's go back to the actual form, and we're going to go ahead and say everything looks okay. We're going to go ahead and submit that, and we're going to get a confirmation box there. And then it's going to redirect back to the page where all of those people that are in process are. So as I indicated, Mary is the first step of the process, and because Stephen Bolt already exists within the organization, if we were to look here and give this a refresh, actually we don't even need to give it a refresh, there we go, it lights up itself. So we've now actually set the status to IT review, and now it's sitting for that IT admin to go ahead and action. So as we know, give me 1 second here, we know, again, as I mentioned, we have lots of different ways that we can act upon things. And one of those is via email, and one is via form. But I'm going to show you another one. If you just give me 1 second, I'm logging into a mobile device because we know IT admins are usually in the server room or out and about. So let's go ahead and take a look at that in just 1 second. So I've just logged into my mobile device, which has the K2 app upon it. I'm on an Android phone here, and I'm just actually literally connected just to display what's on my phone here. And you can see I have a task called display username. And because of our responsive design, when you build a form, you don't have to build it multiple times. You build it once, and it's going to display correctly across devices, whether that's a tablet or a large desktop monitor, or even a small scale Samsung Note 5 like we're seeing here. So we'll give this 1 second to render, and then we'll see how it has rendered appropriately for this size device. And there it's starting to pop up now, so you can see, rather than having to scroll around, that it has rendered appropriately and it's scaled appropriately. So here, the instructions are, a username already exists for this user. Please modify the first or last name so it is that a unique username will be created in Active Directory. So we'll give this 1 second to finish rendering. I apologize for the delay there. And there we go. And you can see I can go ahead and scroll down. It shows the comment from our previous users. I can add comments here as well. It shows me all the information here, Stephen Bolt. So it's one of the ways that I could interact with it. Again, everyone interacts with different ways. So I'm actually going to set that aside for a minute. and I'm actually going to go into the form via the desktop. So I'm going here to IT admin, our good friend Bill, and he has that task waiting for him right there. And we're going to actually open it here as opposed to on the device now. Maybe he just got back to his desk, so we'll go ahead and open that form up. And as I indicated earlier, if we have two people named Steve and Bolt, perhaps only Steve might be a more appropriate username. So we go ahead and change that. We go ahead and say the username is assigned. That's going to go ahead and pop us again confirmation, so there's no ambiguity about whether or not we actually submitted this. We say OK. And just like our HR reviewer, is going to take us back here to the onboard testing screen. So we close that out, and our next person in the process, so we're going to have two people involved, the facilities manager and the HR scheduler. And as we mentioned, if we actually look at the view flow here, what has occurred is we've gone ahead and created that user, so you can see that the that is green, and we're actually literally right now sending that email to the originator, and as you can see, that's blue, indicating that it's presently going on, and that lights up green, and now we're at these next three steps here. It's actually programmatically creating that AA deprovisioning and assigning the permissions to the correct SharePoint sites. And then we have these two things that need to be acted upon manually, the building access and the scheduling. One thing I will point out here is we also have a little bit of a loop here, is that we can also send reminders. So if this gentleman here, or lady as it may be, doesn't act on it in a set amount of time, we're going to send a reminder, and we can even escalate that to their manager. So we could say within 5 hours, if they don't act, we'll give them a reminder, and if they don't do it within 24, we're going to go ahead and escalate it to their manager. So let's take a look at the facilities manager here. We'll give it a refresh, and we'll open up their form right here. And again, showing the interaction between multiple systems is one of the key components here, is that, we actually keep track of all of our workspaces in a SQL database. So here we're actually reaching into SQL. Again, we're kind of the orchestrator, the facilitator between all these different systems. So we're going to say within Arlington or Metro Center, we can take a look and see what we have available. I'm here from the Washington Metro region, and these are some of the areas where government contractors work out of. So we'll say that in Arlington, we have Cube A21 available. So rather than having to pull this information into SharePoint or into K2, we can leave it to reside in the underlying record of truth, in this case being SQL, and go ahead. And we said, let's say, we'll say a large cube with window, we'll say, because this guy was just there and he knows that. So we'll say large cube with window. And we will go ahead and assign that. And then, as I mentioned, the last person, again, we, like everyone else, we take you back to that home page so we can see what's going on. But that last person here is the HR scheduler. And that is our good friend Christy. And you're going to see on her task list that she has to go ahead and schedule them for an orientation. And again, similar to the SQL database, we're going to take advantage of some systems we already have. So when we open this form, we're actually going to schedule this on a SharePoint calendar that everyone has visibility into. But we're just going to go ahead and say that we need to go do this here. We're going to say it's Steve, B-O-L-D-T, Steve Bolt. And we're going to go ahead and dig into that calendar, and we'll say he starts on the 14th. We'll give him a day to meet his boss, and we'll say we're going to do it at 3:43 p.m. on the 15th. And he's a pretty simple employee. We're just going to give him 1 hour. We don't need anything complex there. We're going to go ahead and save that out. And now we've scheduled that employee orientation. We can see those previous comments down there, and we can also see all the information down there at the bottom of the form. So we're going to go ahead and schedule this. And while that closes out, what we will do in just 1 second is we'll take a look back at the view flow, and just to refresh ourselves and remind us where we're going with all this. So if we come back to the view flow, you can see we've now given them permissions to SharePoint, building access, scheduled. We're sending a summary email to that originator, and that would pop in here. Here's also that example of here's the summary email. So the new employee paperwork that you submitted for Steve Bolt is now complete, and a summary is attached for your convenience. So we can PDF that entire form, which is pretty slick, in case they're out of the office or have no access to SharePoint to look at that. So look at that, it comes out really nice. There's a lot of scenarios where this is very helpful. And we are now going to take a look at a couple other things. As I promised, we'll go back to the view flow here, and you can see we're sending them a welcome text, and then they'll have to log in their first day of work and complete some additional information. So let's see what that looks like. So if we bring back my Android phone here, we're going to go ahead and look, and it says from the K2 service, welcome aboard. Hi, Steve, and welcome to K2. Your first day will be on 2015-12-14, and your orientation is scheduled for 1100. So apparently I didn't do that very well in there, but that's the crux of it. Okay, so the last step is when they come on board, their very first day, the new employee, whoops, I think I just clicked the wrong button. When the new employee comes on board, just like the other people, they're going to look at their K2 work list, and they're going to have to go ahead and open up that form. And remember way back when, 15 minutes ago, I said that because they're in the United Kingdom, that's going to do some automatic calculation. So again, this is a robust app. This isn't just forms, but there's a lot of logic and work going on behind the scenes. So one of the things we do is we take we essentially say for every new U.S. employee gets $2,000 that they can go ahead for bring your own device, essentially for a laptop. So what we've done here is when they entered that they were in the United Kingdom, we've gone ahead and converted that to a Great British pound. So now there's no, again, no conflict here. They know that your BYOD policy permits you to purchase a laptop not to exceed, and that's going to looks at a currency conversion web service, so it's always going to be accurate and reflect the fluctuating currency rates. So they can acknowledge that. They can come down here and fill out some additional information around their social security number, date of birth, and then when they're all done, it also tells them their cube down there, the currency they're working on, and they can say approved, and that's going to go ahead and complete it. And one final thing we want to show you, because as we know, at the end of the day, you're trying to improve processes, so we need to see some visibility into those processes. So we have a nice onboarding dashboard here built out of very common K2 building blocks that we can reuse. But essentially, it gives us 3 different reports here. We see that we can see the number of instances and average duration of our new employee workflow. So how many people have we onboarded this month? How long is it taking to onboard those people? So here's the number of instances. So last couple of weeks ago, we did 2, then we did 0, then we did 2. And then this kind of shows you how long it's taking by demo. So 10 minutes, 3 minutes, depending. So it kind of gives you this workflow duration. If we go up here to the actual instances, we can actually drill into the details and see how long each piece took. So we could go into any one of these, and what you would see on the bottom portion is how long it took to set the data fields, how long it took to assign building access. So you can see if there's here it's taking the longest, obviously at a glance, to assign the building access. So what's going on there? Are we lacking cubes? Is this this gentleman just not responding quick enough? So we can look at things like that. And then finally, we can look at the current status of new employees with details. So I can drill into any one of these, such as Steve Bolt right there, and then I can see all of this information below. So this concludes the HR onboarding demo, where we took and went ahead and used various data sources, surfaced that data within forms, tied it all together with workflow, and then gave some reporting on the back end. Thanks.